Hello everybody. So this video is probably just a little bit late because Zack Snyder's Justice League came out on May 18th. Hopefully this is only like a week late and not much more than that, but the reason it's a bit later than a lot of other videos people have posted is because I just wanted to give some time to just really process this movie, to really think about how I feel about this movie, to just kind of think about it, to rewatch the 2017 version of it, to think about why that version doesn't work and why this new Zack Snyder Cut does work very well, and just comparing the two, gathering my thoughts, organizing them in a way that makes sense for this video. And so that's what I've done. That took a bit of time to do, but I think I'm finally ready to give my thoughts on the Zack Snyder Justice League and why I think it is the best movie in the DCEU. So let's talk about it. So just to preface this, my relationship with the DCEU over the years has been very interesting. It's obviously, I haven't really talked about the DCEU on my channel yet. I've mostly stuck to Marvel, MCU stuff. I think that that's always been, the MCU has always been in my mind, higher than the DCEU. And in general, Marvel has always been higher than DC in just kind of my mind in terms of just where my enjoyment of them. But I think that Zack Snyder's Justice League may have changed that. And so, just to start out, I want to talk about original Justice League 2017, directed mostly by Joss Whedon, and just kind of say my relationship with that movie. And so, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I hate to say it, but walking out of the theater after watching Justice League 2017, I loved it. I did. I thought it was one of the best movies. I thought it was the best movie DC had ever made. I thought they had finally found their way, finally made something as good as Marvel. And I could not have been more wrong about that one. But I realized that it was because it was a Marvel movie. It was Avengers with the Justice League. And I've realized since then that doesn't really work, especially with the world they were creating in the previous movies. The whole tone, the whole way the characters in that movie act are nothing like how they act in the other movies. And so I think that I had in my mind, oh, this is great, but it was because it was a Marvel movie. It was because it had all the jokes, the tone of it was like a Marvel movie, because just look at the director of it, Joss Whedon. He directed the first two Avengers, and I think that had kind of tricked me into believing this was good. But then, as time went on, as I rewatched it, as I heard other people's thoughts on it, as I learned more about what happened and behind the scenes of how this movie came to be, why Zack Snyder had to leave, and all that stuff that happened behind the scenes, it just took a plunge for me. It just turned into this movie that I just really dislike. I think that it is one of the worst things to ever come out of the DCEU, and I think it's sort of the same relationship I have with Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. It's like, I walked out of that movie like, Star Wars is back, they figured it out, they made a good movie, but it was only because it was a fun movie. It was only because they had all this Star Wars stuff that once you first watch it, you're like, yes, that is amazing, that was so good, that was so fun, that was amazing. And then you rewatch it, and here everything, and you realize, oh, there's major plot holes in this. It doesn't fit with the other movies. This is just a weird thing. The structure is terrible. And that's very similar to my relationship with Justice League. Right out of the theater, it's meant to be this movie that is fun, that has a lot of humor, that is like, you end the movie and you're like, yeah, Superman's back, oh, that was a good movie, and you're like, but the story is terrible, the acting is nothing like, doesn't seem like the same characters from before, it's just a lot of weird jokes that you get caught up in the moment, but when you really start to think about it, you're like, that doesn't fit with the rest of the world. That doesn't fit with that doesn't fit. This story structure is terrible, and so I started to realize as time went on, it's just really awful. And really, the awfulness of this movie gets highlighted even more with the existence of the Snyder Cut. Like, after watching the Snyder Cut, you start to really realize how terrible this movie is, and you just start to wonder, like, how did this go so wrong? How did they go from this giant, epic masterpiece of a film to this weird thing that doesn't fit with the rest of the universe, and they make weird jokes like the Flash falling on Wonder Woman's boobs, and the Flash, instead of having this epic moment, going back in time, pushing a truck filled with a family in it that we're only following because you needed to have this moment. Like, that's just so weird. And then it also gets immediately undermined by Superman with a building flying as like, oh yeah, Flash, he could save one truck, one family. Superman, he can fly a whole building of people and save them. Like, wait, that was supposed to be Flash's big moment, and you just undermine it by... It's so weird. It's like, I don't get how they went with that. Like, it's not even a budget thing. It's not even a... Okay. I'll get to that later. But, to give my general thoughts on the Snyder Cut, since I kind of already went into that, it's amazing. It is, like I said before, it is an epic movie. The 4 hours helps it so much, like, because I think that, being that they only have 3 movies before it that set up these characters, they only have Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Wonder Woman, you have to set up 3 other characters, Aquaman, Flash, and Cyborg, and you can't really do that effectively in a 2-hour movie. So that's where I think the 4 hours, it really needed to be 4 hours. I mean, there's some stuff in it could have gotten cut. I think it would have, if this was the theatrically released version, stuff would have gotten cut out, and it would have ended up maybe being like a 3-hour movie, but I think the 4 hours really helps you get this development of Cyborg, and you just are able to develop all these characters way more than you could in, again, the 2-hour Justice League 2017 version. And I honestly think this movie, it's gotten me totally on board with the DCEU. Like I said previously, the DCEU, my relationship with it has been really weird. It's never been something that I was totally invested in. Like, I watched most of the movies, but it wasn't something I was invested in as much as Marvel, as much as the MCU. And after this movie, I'm like, I want something else. I want to see where they were. I want to see where they're going with this. And I don't know if they are or aren't gonna do more with what they set up. But like, I want them. Like, I'm like, please keep going with this. This is good. This is good. This is good stuff. I want more of this. I'm invested now. Whereas before, I was kind of like, this is weird. This, like, they don't know what they're doing with this. And I think that if they keep going with what they set up in Zack Snyder's Justice League, they could end up honestly doing something better than Marvel. And everything about Zack Snyder's Justice League is so much better than the 2017 version. Everything, the editing, the score, everything, the pacing, everything is better. The humor is better. There's not those weird jokes. Everything is better about this movie. And so, I think now I want to go into some comparisons between the two, showing 2017 version, what that did, and how they messed that up, and how Zack Snyder's Justice League fixed that. What they did in that version, what Zack Snyder did and was planning on doing, and how that is so much better than Justice League. So to start out, both movies begin opening with Superman. Justice League starts out with a weird interview between a kid interviewing weird upper lip Superman about asking him stupid questions that I feel like are too stupid for even a kid to ask. Like, honestly, like, I don't understand what they were doing here. Like, they were trying to make jokes of like, oh yeah, kids are stupid to say the most ridiculous things, but I feel like they went too far with it, where it's just like, I don't think even a child would ask that question, and at the same time, you're having Superman seem really annoyed with them. Like, Superman's not supposed to be annoyed by kids talking to him, but, I mean, honestly, with these two kids, I think anybody would be annoyed, but just it's a weird first scene to introduce Superman, like, it's showing him as this symbol that, oh yeah, children look up to him, but he seems annoyed by them, and these kids they're asking questions that kids wouldn't even ask, so it's just really weird. Then you look at Zack Snyder's Justice League, and how does that start? You look at Death of Superman in Batman vs. Superman. We see that slowed down, seeing the ripple effect. You hear his scream echoing across the world, and then this opening ends with, you see the Mother Box awaken because of his scream, setting up Steppenwolf's arrival. In the 2017 version, that's not even set up. Steppenwolf just kind of shows up. Oh, okay, they kind of state that it's because Superman died, and yeah, they state it. They literally, I think in the first scene they have, the burglar that Batman was using to attract Parademon. He says, oh, they're here because he's dead, right? They're here because Superman's dead, right? They state it. But in this version, they show it. You realize exactly what happened. You realize Superman died, and that awoke the Mother Box. And the Mother Box alerted Steppenwolf, and that's why he comes at that moment. You set up something, it gets paid off later. So much better than Justice League. Then, after this intro with Superman, kind of referencing his death, we get Batman's introduction. Where do we see Batman? In Justice League. Fighting a Parademon. And then realizing, oh, I had to get the team together. Oh yeah, also, the Parademon explodes and reveals the Mother Boxes. The Parademon explodes and leaves behind, on the wall behind it, an image of the 3 Mother Boxes. Why? Why does that happen? They don't explain it. Why would that happen? Why would a Parademon exploding result in an image of the Mother Boxes behind it? That makes literally no sense. Why would Steppenwolf even be sending them if that was a possibility? Because literally, that's what causes his downfall, is because Batman knows about it. So why would that even be the case? Why would the parademons explode and reveal the mother boxes? That seems totally counteractive to Steppenwolf's... That just makes no sense. Makes zero sense. What do they do in Zack Snyder's Justice League? We just skipped to Batman looking for Aquaman. That makes so much more sense. Because where do we leave him in Batman vs. Superman? Saying, we gotta put a team together, because there is something coming. So it makes sense that he'd be out gathering the team together. Instead, in Justice League, he's fighting a parademon, and that's what makes him realize he has to put the team together. He's already realized that. We don't need to have him realize it again. So, Zack Snyder's Justice League, he's looking for Aquaman. We get pretty much the same scene that we got in the other version, but, again, way better, without weird jokes. It's just a way better scene, edited better. It takes its time with things. A common theme throughout the movie is it is better than the 2017 version. Also, a bit of a side note, but Batman in this movie seems way more like the character we saw in Batman vs. Superman than he did in Justice League. Like, in Justice League 2017, he just seems like a totally different character. But in this version, he seems like the natural progression from that movie. So, he seems like the same character. So, I just want to say that was very well done in this version, and one of the reasons why the other version is so terrible. It's a common thing that all the characters that are brought back don't seem like the same characters. So, Batman and Wonder Woman and Superman, all three of them seem like the same character. But speaking of Wonder Woman, let's move on to her introduction. So, in both movies, we pretty much get the same scene of her stopping the bad guys in the bank or whatever it was. And it's pretty much the exact same scene. However, in Zack Snyder's Justice League, it is, again, so much better. The editing is better. The score is better. In the 2017 version, the score, the music used when the bad guys are entering the building seems really goofy. It seems like just like what you'd expect if like Joker was robbing a bank in 90s Batman. That's what you would expect would be playing. So for that's what you would expect to be happening for that music to be playing. It doesn't fit that world. The music playing in this version fits that world. Fits the tone that world is creating. Also, the color palette. Throughout the whole movie, in Zack Snyder's, it's muted colors, while in the Justice League 2017, it's saturated colors, like a Marvel movie. Again, doesn't work with the tones that this world has created. You can't just all of a sudden bump up the saturation because you feel like it. Doesn't fit with the tone you were creating. So, back to Wonder Woman's scene. I will say, the theme that they used for Wonder Woman, the theme music, Wonder Woman's theme in this movie, whatever it was, like the Lamentations thing, I wasn't a big fan of it. I think I liked the other, her other theme they've been using for the other movies better than this one. I think they used it once in this movie when she was, during the hostage scene later when the Justice League teams up. I think that's the only time they use it. I could be wrong. But I think most of the time they just use the weird thing that I wasn't really the biggest fan of. So that's the one point that I'll give to Justice League. So, yeah. But now, I think I'll move on to Aquaman. So, I will say, this probably is, this probably benefits from having the Aquaman movie already released prior to it. I think that, even though it takes place after this, I think just having that movie to kind of understand Aquaman's backstory and understand the character more, I think helps this movie. Whereas when you're watching Justice League 2017 for the first time, sorry, I keep going back and forth between calling it Justice League and Justice League, because Justice League is the joke everybody makes because of Joss Whedon directed it. So probably throughout the video, I'm going to go back and forth between the two, but I'll always differentiate between the two movies, between Justice League or Justice League 2017 and Zack Snyder Justice League, but just know I'll go back and forth between the terms I use for them, but I'll always make sure I specify which one I'm talking about. So, I think that, what was I saying? I think Aquaman, since in Justice League 2017, since we hadn't seen Aquaman yet, it kind of is weird, because we're just seeing this character that we're having to be introduced to him, and Flash, and Cyborg, and so having to do that in a 2-hour movie doesn't really work. So I think having seen Aquaman, even though it takes place afterwards, just knowing the character a bit more, having a bit more time with the character, helps this movie. And so, in kind of like a meta way, but so pretty much, I think there wasn't much added with Aquaman. I think there was just one scene where he's talking to Willem Dafoe's character, and just it wasn't much added besides that. There's some little things here and there, little extra scenes, but there's not much added with him, which is fine. I think since we have Aquaman, we didn't need that much more added with his character. And so moving on to the Flash. So he's definitely fleshed out, his backstory is fleshed out way more in this movie. We get this kind of cool, just kind of slowed down speedster, kind of like Quicksilver type scene where he's saving, I assume, who will be his love interest in future movies. And so I thought that was cool. That was a cool way to introduce his character. And also, all the goofy stuff with his character, is clearly taken out. All the really weird, goofy stuff is taken out of this version. There's still, of course, goofy moments, but that's just because of his character, just the way Ezra Miller is, the way they made the character. He's designed to be kind of a goofy, weird kind of guy, but there's just some really weird moments that are just why did you even do that? Like I mentioned before, him falling on Wonder Woman's boobs, that's weird. So that was thankfully taken out of this version. And then, also, as I mentioned before, his change in the final battle, his big moment, way better in this version than it was in the other version. And so that's pretty much Flash in this movie. He's just way more fleshed out, way more just a better character. It's a better version of the character without all of the goofy, weird jokes that they made for him. They just kind of made him a lot cooler of a character, gave him a much better, big moment, as I, again, have said a few times in the video. But probably one of the biggest changes in this movie in terms of good guy characters being developed way more is Cyborg. He goes from being easily the least developed in Justice League 2017 to being easily the most developed out of the 3 new introduced characters in the Zack Snyder version. They give him an entire backstory. They show his backstory. You understand where he's coming from when he's talking about him being a monster, where you kind of, you understand it in a certain sense in Justice League 2017, but you really understand it here because you get the backstory. You understand what happened, and you get this, you see where he's coming from, but at the same time, you're like, your father's just trying to be there for you. He's just tried to save you, tried to get you back, and after dying in the car crash, he couldn't get his wife back, your mother back, so he tried to get you back, and he did, and now you're ungrateful for it. He's just trying to help, and I think that whole relationship between him and his father is done way better here, because you get the sense, you understand the distance in them. You understand, like, he's mad at him. He's like, he turned him into this monster. Cyborg thinks that. But his father, like I just said, he just wanted to get his son back. And this is also where I think the 4-hour runtime really helps. Because you could never do this. They couldn't have done this in the 2-hour version. You couldn't have this, you couldn't give him his whole, like, I want to say, like, he gets, like, an hour of screen time just for his backstory. Like, you could never do that in a 2-hour movie. But in the 4-hour thing, in a 4-hour big event movie, yeah, you could give him his whole, you could give him, like, his whole storyline, his whole backstory to really understand his character. So, again, I think that's where the 4 hours really helps this movie. And really helps Cyborg's character. And he also has this character arc. He grows as a character. He goes from, as I said, feeling like he's a monster, hating his dad for turning him into this monster. And then by the end of it, he listens to the recording that he destroyed earlier. You have his father's death. It's not even in the other version. But that has so much more weight to it. You're like, like you feel like you're like, oh, no. They were just starting to have a good relationship, and he sacrificed himself to save the world, and you feel that so much. Whereas in the other version, you don't get any of that, really. You're just kind of like, oh, yeah, they have a better relationship. Oh, now they have a good relationship. But you don't have any of, really, the middle portion where you have all that growth, and you don't get the sacrifice. He's alive. His father is alive at the end of it. And so, there's just so much more added to Cyborg's character. So much more added to his relationship with his father, and his backstory, and everything. And so, I think he's easily the most developed in this movie, out of the good guy characters. And then, to move on to the bad guy, Steppenwolf, he is so, I think he has a bigger leap than Cyborg does, in the sense of, like, where he was in the 2017 version and where he is now. 2017 version, he's this very generic villain. Oh, I'm gonna take over the world. He says mother a lot. And that's really his only thing. He doesn't have any other really character traits, just besides he's the villain. He says mother a lot. He wants to destroy the world. That's it. And his entrance getting the mother box from the Amazonian warriors, it's not set up at all in the other version, where, again, it's set up at the beginning of the movie in Zack Snyder's version, whereas it isn't in the other version. It just kind of happens. He just comes in, destroys, beats the Amazonian warriors, takes another box, there he goes, and just really quick. But Zack Snyder's, he arrives, and you have this back and forth. Sean Chandler talked about this in his review. he goes back, there's the back and forth between, Steppenwolf is winning, and now the Amazonian Warriors are winning, and then Steppenwolf is on top, and then the Amazonian Warriors are now on top, and then the building crashes down, but then Steppenwolf is able to survive that, and there's this back and forth where you're like, is he gonna get it? Like, he gets it, but you're like, I don't, like, is he gonna get it? Is he not gonna get it? And eventually he gets it. And it's so much better of a scene than he just shows up for no reason at all. He just randomly shows up, attacks them, takes the mother box, done. That's good for showing a powerful villain, but not for showing an interesting villain, And even the way they do it, you're not feeling like, oh, he's this really powerful villain. You're just like, that's it? He just came in and took the mother box? So, his entrance, his arrival is done way better in the Zack Snyder version, and they give him a whole backstory that's way better. You understand his motives, you understand why he's doing what he's doing, how he got banished by Darkseid for some reason, and he's trying to regain his honor. Very Zuko from After the Last Airbender, that kind of thing. And except, you're not really. Steppenwolf never really becomes a good guy. I guess spoilers for After the Last Airbender. Sorry about that. But Steppenwolf, you understand where he's coming from. You understand he's banished. All he's trying to do is regain his honor. Go back to being with Darkseid. Go back to his home planet. And that's the only reason why he just wants to destroy Earth. He's just trying to get back on Darkseid's good side. And so you just, again, you understand his motives, where he's coming from. You almost empathize with him. He's a way more compelling villain in this version than just the guy who just wants to destroy the world and says mother a lot. So, Steppenwolf is done way better in this version. And so, now, I want to move on to Superman's return. So, we get pretty much the same scene in both movies where the rest of the team is planning his return. They're putting the pieces together. They're like, the mother box can bring Superman back to life. However, in Justice League 2017 version, they're all making jokes. Wonder Woman is like questioning the morality of it. Bruce Wayne is being a jerk, mentioning Steve Trevor. Flash is talking about Pet Cemetery. It's not this, epic scene where, you and the characters are putting the pieces together of, like, the mother box can take, they explain, like, with the house analogy, like, anyone can burn a house down and turn it to ashes, turn it to smoke, but the mother box can take the smoke and turn it back into a house. And you start putting the pieces together, like, okay, so that means that you could bring a certain powerful alien from Krypton who died in the last movie back to life, and immediately as they're figuring it out, they show Superman, kind of a hologram of Superman on the, on top of the box. And it's just this big triumphant moment, whereas in Justice League, again, it's not this epic moment. You're just annoyed with all the characters. Like, really? You're questioning the morality of this Wonder Woman? Flash, really? You're making a Pet Cemetery reference? What's happening here? This isn't the moment it should be. It's not a triumphant moment. It's just a really weird scene. And also, in this Snyder Cut version, it's set up, it's triumphant, it's, you're building up to this moment where you realize we could bring Superman back to life. But I feel like in Justice League, it just kind of comes out of nowhere where they're just like, oh, we can bring Superman back to life. And you're like, how did you get to that? Like, what? How did you figure that out? But, again, in Zack Snyder's version, it's this build-up to this epic moment. And now, let's talk about the actual resurrection of Superman. So, again, let's start out with what happens in Justice League. It's unexplained pretty much how they get into the spaceship, why nobody's in the lab. They just kind of end up in there, and you're like, how did they get there? The whole thing just kind of sort of just happens. It's cut really weird. It's just all the beats. That's kind of a theme throughout that movie. All of the story beats are there, but without any of the cool stuff, without any of the emotional stuff. It's just boom, 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 boom. They get there, they do the stuff, they resurrect Superman, yada yada yada, boom, boom, boom. We did it all, and it's just like they're just checking off the boxes. But in this version, again, it's a build-up. It's like you have in the Zack Snyder version, there's a build-up to it. Back to Justice League version. Superman gets resurrected, flies up. You get the same scene you get in Zack Snyder's version too, where he's fighting everybody. He sees Batman, and he literally says, I remember you. He literally says, I remember you. He literally says, I remember you. Seriously? You couldn't just have him, like they had in Zack Snyder's version, just look at Batman and you let the audience put the pieces together of, oh man, he remembers him from when they fought in the last movie. No, you have to literally have him say, I remember you. And that's not even the worst of it. He goes up to him. He picks him up by the face, it's really weird, and says, weird upper lip and all, says, do you bleed? He says that. He says, do you bleed? He says, tell me, do you bleed? A reference to Batman vs. Superman when Batman said the same thing to him. However, okay, that's a cool reference, but it doesn't really make sense here. It's kind of, again, you're telling the audience exactly what's happening. You're like, yeah, here's what's happening. If you hadn't figured it out by now, Superman is mad at Batman for fighting him, trying to fight him in Batman vs. Superman. Zack Snyder's version lets you figure that out. This version does everything they can to tell you that exactly. And it's also really unnecessarily creepy Superman, especially, like, it's not, like, the way he says it is creepy, the fact that he's saying it is creepy. It's really just a weird, just creepy version, especially since it seems like they weren't going to go the route of evil Superman. Just very weird thing to do. And then he gets calmed down when Lois Lane shows up because Alfred brought her. Because in the last movie, Flash told Batman Lois is the key, and this is, I guess, the payoff for that, is that Alfred brings Lois here to calm Superman down. That's the big guns they were mentioning before. Okay, that's I kind of see that you're, doing a bit of a payoff of something, but let's see what Zack Snyder had. How do they get into the spaceship? How is there nobody else in the lab? Because they get it evacuated. They make a false alarm to get everybody to leave, and you also have this moment between Cyborg and his father, where his father is like, no, it's a false alarm, there's nothing out of containment. And then he sees his son, and he's like, oh, this is superhero stuff. Never mind, I was wrong. There is actually something. That's a nice moment between the two of them. And that's not in the other version. In the other version, they're somehow in the spaceship. For some reason, nobody's in the lab. They're just there. They just showed up there. Yeah, they kind of show them infiltrating it, but they just kind of show up in there. And then, leading up to Superman's resurrection, there's tension building up. You start wondering at this point, not before, when Wonder Woman is questioning the morality of it. No, this is the moment where you start questioning it. You start realizing, wait, this triumphant thing may not be as good as we thought. The computer starts warning them, like, this isn't reversible. Are you sure you want to do this? You can't reverse this. Are you sure? This cannot be reversed. It keeps repeating that. And the tension is building up. Flash is about to run down. And he says something beforehand of when he goes super fast, time acts weird, setting up something that happens later. And you have this tension building up. And the moment happens. And right at the last second, Cyborg has this vision of Darkseid taking over the Earth, Superman being evil, this apocalyptic world. But it's too late. Flash has already started running. He's going down to supercharge the mother box. It goes into the water, or whatever liquid is, and it starts coming back up. Again, setting up, time acts differently, acts weird when he goes super fast. So, we get the release, the payoff. Superman flies up. And you get the same scene as in the other version where he's fighting everybody. He sees Batman. He's remembering, he's mad at him for what happened in Batman vs. Superman. Except you don't have the weird lines like, I remember you, and tell me, do you bleed? You don't have any of that. You just have him go after Batman. You understand what's happening. You don't have to have him say it. And then you get Lois show up and calm him down. In this version, not because Alfred brought her, but because she goes to her dead, almost fiance's memorial often. She goes to Superman's memorial often, and so she's there. She shows up there. We set that up before, that she always goes there. She gives the cop coffee. We set up, that's kind of a daily thing she does, so it makes sense that she'll go there. It's not the payoff for Flash. It's not the payoff for Flash warning Bruce. That's going to happen later. We don't need that now, because that's really not a great payoff for that. No, this is just even more knowledge. This is just even more like Lois is the key stuff. Setting up something that'll happen later. Something that we haven't gotten yet, but we may or may not be getting. But at least that was the plan. So I was setting up stuff that at least would be happening in the future. And so, now, let's get into, Lois calms him down, they fly away, similar to what happens in the other version. And then, let's talk about the third act, the final battle. Really where a lot of the differences come in. Pretty much the first half, it's pretty much the same, with them with them just kind of going up to where Steppenwolf is. It's a similar kind of thing. It's not this, weird orangey clouds around going on. It's, it's different, but it's a similar thing that happens. You have a lot of the same moments, but again, it's edited differently. It's it's just a way better version of it, even though it's the same thing. Again, common throughout the movie. But then we get to Superman's entrance, where some big changes happen. In Justice League, Superman shows up behind Steppenwolf, like this, and he's like, Steppenwolf had said something about truth. I don't remember what it was, but then he's like, I believe in truth, and I also believe in justice. He says something stupid like that. It's a really weird line.
I believe in truth, but I'm also a big fan of justice.
They could have thought of something better. So, he does that. Then you also have this scene, this moment a little bit later where Superman says to Batman, I know you didn't bring me back because you like me. And Batman's like, I don't not like you. Doesn't really fit with the two characters. That's a weird moment. That's a goofy moment. So, doesn't fit with this world. It's a very kind of a Marvel thing to do. And so, not that, again, I love MCU stuff, so it just doesn't fit with the characters. So, just a weird line. Weird moment. Then, his big contribution, he helps Cyborg separate the mother boxes. I think this does happen in the Zack Snyder version too. They get blown back because of the kind of explosion that happens from taking apart the mother boxes, and then they start laughing. And Cyborg makes a joke about his toes hurting. He's like, I don't understand the physics of how my toes hurt. And as they're laughing, Wonder Woman's like, children. I work with children. Okay. Alright, let's see what Zack Snyder did. So, let's go back. Superman enters the battle. He's in his black suit. We get an epic scene before it where he gets it on, he flies around. Epic moment. Not even in the other version. Not even in Justice League. This version, we get this epic moment. He gets the black suit. And then he comes in at the nick of time. Steppenwolf is about to kill Cyborg. He's coming down with his axe or whatever it is. And then Superman shows up. Not impressed. He says something like that. And so, that's a way more epic moment than I believe in truth. And I also believe in justice. That's a very campy line again. It's a very I can see Christopher Reeve Superman saying that. I like Christopher Reeve Superman, but that doesn't fit with this Superman. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised for another version of Superman saying that necessarily. But this version of Superman, that is not something he would say. That is just, I don't get how they even wrote that line. And so, now, I've talked about this moment a few times in the video, but Flash's big moment. Justice League. What's his big moment? Pushing a truck with a family in it that we've been following for the entire movie for the sole purpose of having this moment. There's really no other reason for having the 3 scenes in the movie prior to this with this family besides having that be Flash's big moment. Big heroic moment. He pushes a truck with a family in it. And not only does that happen, but immediately after it, Superman flies past him with a building, immediately undermining his moment. His victory. Make a good joke out of it. What did Zack Snyder do? Flash's big moment is he's supposed to be circling around, getting a electrical charge up, so that when Cyborg is ready, he can give an electrical charge to separate the mother boxes. He then fails to do that because one of the parademons shoots him, which results in when Cyborg needs him the most, he's not there. The mother boxes end up merging, and there's an explosion, and everybody near it dies. And then Flash slows down time. Or I guess speeds up and goes, he breaks his one rule that was set up earlier. Don't go fast enough to turn back time. Don't mess with time. He breaks his rule set up earlier in the movie again. Turns back time. And it's a really cool moment. It's a really cool new use of, one, speedsters, and two, messing with time travel. He's running as the ground is being put back together underneath his feet. And as he's getting closer, as he's turning back time more and more, you see the rest of the Justice League forming back together because they had been destroyed a second earlier when the mother boxes exploded. He's running back. And he gets to Cyborg, gives him the electrical charge, he separates the mother boxes, and that's Flash's big moment. And it's obviously setting up the future of DCEU, where he ends up going back in time to warn Bruce that Lois is the key to Superman not being evil. And instead of that, Joss Whedon decided, I'll have him push a truck with a family in it. And we'll have some scenes before that with the family, so it feels like a payoff of some sorts. And then also be, anyway, undermined by Superman a second later. And I could see, okay, maybe it was a budget issue. Maybe they didn't have the budget to do this kind of thing at the time. Probably did. Maybe they didn't have the time to. Maybe they didn't have the budget. Maybe they were like, we can't do this big of a moment. But you could have done something that wasn't Flash pushing a car, pushing a truck. You could have done something that was at least on the same level, but wasn't so costly, wasn't so time-consuming to do. You could have done something, and you could have at least not undermined it immediately after. Like, at least let that be his moment if you're gonna make that be his moment. It's just so weird that they would do that. And then, Steppenwolf's defeat. In Justice League 2017, how does Steppenwolf get defeated? He gets sworn by his own parademons because he has fear. What? Did he not have any fear earlier in the movie? Is nobody else there having fear? How is he the only one feeling fear? Like, they have a shot of Flash. He looks afraid. This doesn't make sense. Like, that scene doesn't make sense at all. In Zack Snyder's version, you have this portal open, Darkseid, and you have Steppenwolf is finally being able to return home, and as he's going back, I think Wonder Woman or Aquaman or somebody cuts off his head, which, that is awesome and brutal and wow. And not only is that kind of a tragic death for Steppenwolf, but it also sets up Darkseid. Darkseid is coming. Darkseid is going to be a future bad guy in a future Justice League movie. Sets the future of the DCU up. And so with that, now let's get into the epilogue. So, in both movies, we get a voiceover speech. In Justice League, who does his voiceover speech? Lois Lane. And overall, I'd say, okay, it's not that terrible of a choice for the person to give the final speech. You know, it is about Superman's return, so and she's Superman's, I guess, now fiance. So, okay, sure. You can have her do the speech at the end. It's a very generic speech. It ends with her saying, if you want to find a hero, look up in the sky. Kind of a very campy, generic superhero thing to say. Doesn't really fit that world, but okay, whatever. Lois Lane, sure. She did the speech. But let's see what Zack Snyder's version did. Because in this version, Cyborg's father does the speech. Is that not way better? Is that not a much better person to have do the speech than Lois Lane? The person who died, who sacrificed himself for the victory. Like, he is what allowed the Justice League to win, was his sacrifice, because he sacrifices himself by superheating the mother box so they know where it is on Earth. His sacrifice is what allows the Justice League to win. And also, the speech is a recording on a tape recorder that Cyborg destroyed earlier in the movie. So, not only is it a cool moment because it's this character who was important to the story, but it shows Cyborg's character arc. Before, he didn't want to listen to a word his father said, even on a recording. But now, he's gone through this character arc. He's ready now. He wants to listen to what the last thing his father wanted to tell him was. A character arc for Cyborg. Not even in Justice League at all. You get this character arc. And this voiceover speech is part of it. Way better than Lois Lane giving a very generic superhero end of a superhero movie speech. Plus, again, there's a lot more emotion to it, having him die earlier in the movie, and having his death be so important to the third act of the movie. And then, that brings us to the post-credit scenes. Technically, in Zack Snyder's version, there's not post-credit scenes, but that's really the only way I can kind of put them in the same I can kind of think to put them in the same kind of category. So, Justice League 2017, post-credits scene, Lex Luthor escapes Arkham Asylum, teams up with Deathstroke to make a league of their own and go up against the Justice League. Okay. What do they do in Zack Snyder's Justice League? You have basically the same scene. We find out Lex Luthor escaped Arkham Asylum, Deathstroke goes up to his boat, except instead of recruiting him to make a league of their own, he's recruiting him to go up against Batman, setting up the Ben Affleck Batman movie that was supposed to happen. And you even have this moment where Lex Luthor reveals to Deathstroke Bruce Wayne is Batman. That is way better than having Lex Luthor weirdly say, shouldn't we have a league of our own? In the weird way he talks. Way better. Then we get another nightmare sequence. This isn't in the other version at all. We get another nightmare sequence, setting up future Justice League movies that may or may not be happening. And we get a ton of bombs dropped on us. Like, we get just like, this person's dead, and this person's dead, and this happened, and he's evil, and yada, yada, yada. We get so much information of, like, what is going to happen in these next few movies. It's like, we find out Lois Lane is dead. Aquaman is dead, I guess. Because Mara says they'll pay for what they did to Arthur, who's Aquaman. So Aquaman's dead, apparently. Batman killed Harley Quinn. Superman is evil. Darkseid took over Earth. The Justice League have teamed up with the Joker and Deathstroke. We get a lot of information, a lot of bombs dropped on us in this scene for what is, at least was supposed to happen in the future of the DCEU. And then we get Bruce wakes up from his nightmare dream and goes outside and we see Martian Manhunter introduced. He was set up earlier in the movie. We saw him, he was pretending to be Martha Kent talking to Lois Lane, and he gets introduced, setting up, again, future Justice League movies that may or may not be happening, which I assume they are, because I think they refilmed, they shot this for this movie, so it would seem weird to... And I think they also may have shot the nightmare scene also, so it would seem weird to have, to put the work into actually doing that if you're not going to, do that, if you're not going to pay that off down the road. Then again, it could just be Zack Snyder wanted to release the movie he was going to release 4 years ago, so who knows? Who knows why they did that, but I think that I'm hoping that this isn't the end of it and they actually are going to, pursue more of this storyline. And so, now we have finished Zack Snyder's Justice League and Justice League 2017. We went through them side by side, pretty much, saying what they did wrong in Justice League and what they did right in Zack Snyder's version. I changed the hands between the two sentences. But, again, Zack Snyder's Justice League just takes everything that was wrong in the 2017 Justice League. Takes everything wrong with that movie. Takes every single thing about it. And makes it better. It adds scenes. It adds scenes that weren't in the other version. It takes scenes that were and re-edits them to make them better. It takes scenes that serve the same purpose as one in the other version, but it's a better version of it. Zack Snyder's Justice League is the better version, the proper version of Justice League. And I think it is definitively the best movie DC has ever made. At least the DCEU has ever made. And I might even say, this is really weird for me to say, but I think it may be better than any MCU movie. Maybe. If not, very close. And I think that if they pursue this more, if they follow what they're setting up, they follow through with it, it could very possibly surpass the MCU, in my mind. Very possibly. And again, or at least very close second. Like right now, like prior to this movie, it was like this big a gap. Now it's like this big a gap. It's very hard for me to tell which is better. It's completely changed my view of Batman vs. Superman and Man of Steel. Two movies that I was kind of like, they're good. Man of Steel is fine. Batman vs. Superman has a lot of problems. Which, Batman vs. Superman, I think that prior to this movie, I kind of viewed that as Zack Snyder's mistake. Like, Zack Snyder's just weird storytelling was the problem with that. But I think the entire problem with Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice was Warner Bros. Was Warner Brothers interfering with, telling Zack Snyder, you gotta do this and this. You gotta have Batman and Superman fight. You have to have them team up. You have to have Wonder Woman. You have to set up Justice League. You have to introduce Batman, because you haven't done that yet. You have to introduce Lex Luthor. You have to do 10 other things in this one movie. And that obviously does not work. And so, I think once, especially in, a 2-hour movie, or however long, I think, is it like 2.5 hours? I don't know how long Batman vs. Superman is, but, you can't fit that in there. But if you tell him to do all this stuff, and you have 4 hours to do it, he can make something great. He can make something that is, again, the best DC movie ever made, and possibly better than Marvel. And so, I'm gonna wrap up this very, very long video, and just say that, to close it out, Zack Snyder's Justice League has changed my entire view of the DCEU, and it's got me very excited for where the future of it, what the future holds for it. So please, comment below your thoughts on the video and of Zack Snyder's Justice League, and please give the video a like, consider subscribing, and check out some of my other videos. And with that said, that's a wrap.